Hey everybody, Jazzy here. Welcome to part 2 of the Wanda boss run in Don't Starve Together. Last time she rushed in Alarming Clock and then rushed the ruins. Now I'm heading back upstairs with some timepieces, gems, and crowns. I need to map out more of the overworld. I still haven't found the Triple Mac Tusk biome, which will be my first stop in winter. We did get around to checking out the swamp. From the prefab count on day 1, I was expecting to find a reed trap, but nope. We just have an absolutely enormous swamp with about 100 reed plants. I seriously don't mind running around every once in a while to collect reeds. I plan on using knight armor a lot in this run, so they are a very important resource. I had the absolute sketchiest start to winter when I realized that not only had I yet to make a thermal stone, not only had I no alchemy engine pre-built, not only had I never prototyped boards or cut stone for another alchemy engine, but I was also out of grass needed to hammer more pig houses for the alchemy engine materials. I think the lesson here is to make the thermal stone well in advance of day 21, because it tends to rain like hell at the end of your first autumn, so more often than not you will be dealing with freezing sooner than you think. But eventually I made my way back to Pig King and threw down an alchemy engine. Now I'm finally able to prototype a thermal stone and papyrus. Then I can prototype the knight armor. This is such a good choice for protecting Wanda for a number of reasons. Firstly, it has the highest damage reduction you can get from any armor in the game. Fighting as old Wanda means you can die from a small bit of damage, so it is important to mitigate that damage as much as possible. Secondly, old Wanda negates all of the passive sanity loss from wearing knight armor, so for me, it's not a tough sell. The only bummer is the 3 papyrus needed for each suit, hence the importance of reed availability. I am falling in love with this world. Check out the generation. A Triple Mac Tusk biome directly behind the Oasis and also perfectly adjacent to the Moonstone Forest. This means I can base in the Oasis, and in winter I can run over one biome and hit up all 4 walrus camps at once. I need a bunch of walrus tusks to make my backtrek watches, so the first few winters I need to really stay on top of the walruses and kill them as often as possible. It didn't take too long to find Klaus, so day 26 I'm facing off. But first I want to show you some footage from my practice run where I actually cheesed him to show off this method that's unique to Wanda. If you maneuver Klaus so that he's on the opposite side of the loot stash, you can keep him completely stunned with the alarming clock. It also works in the second phase, you just need to reposition so that the sack is always between the two of you. It's super cheesy, but I love it nonetheless.
Glorious cheese, tastes mighty inviting.
On this run though, I ditched the cheese in favor of an actual fight. Wanda's kiting pattern is weird with the alarming clock. You can sneak in like a few extra hits because the first hit will stun Klaus momentarily. If you do 2 hits, then back up, then do 2 hits again, sometimes you can chain the stuns and he'll actually have a hard time getting close enough to cast a deer spell. The stunning is a bit inconsistent though, so for practical purposes, I probably wouldn't go for more than 2 or 3 spanks at a time. I also preferred mid-aged Wanda because I didn't want to die if I screwed up the timing and took 2 swipes or a deer headbutt. Still, it's a fairly straightforward fight. The most annoying thing to me is that you can't stunlock the deer as easily after the fight. From the sack, I got a scale and a furnace blueprint. That's pretty nice, actually. A sack would have been better, but yeah. After that day 4 tree guard and day 6 alarming clock, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. It took me a while to find the stupid BeeQueen hive. Finally, on day 28, I find it generated on the edge of land, which is pretty unusual and stupid. I wanted to get to her earlier, but now Klops is coming in 2 days, so I'll wait until after that to start BeeQueen. After a couple rounds of walrus hunting, I'm finally able to make my first backtrek watch. This one will bring me back to my base and save a ton of travel time just dropping off loot. After a few years of Walrus Massacre, I should have a couple stacks of tusks, and then I get to link all different parts of my world together. Ideally, I'd love to eventually not have to walk anywhere ever again. I ended up fighting Klops in the desert where I was picking cactus. It's interesting because with other characters, you can position yourself a bit away from Klops and tank without losing too much sanity. With the alarming clock though, Klops will get stunned from the first hit, then just walk right on top of you and start stealing your sanity. So it actually makes some sense to kite and take advantage of the range. Just hit twice, then back up before Klops can move closer to you. Either way, the fight won't take that long. I think I lost like 50 sanity, which is only 25% of Wanda's max. Then I'm heading straight over to BeeQueen, and I'm very excited to get this fight out of the way before spring. This may be one of my favorite strategies for this boss fight. And here's how it goes. Starting off as old Wanda with a Thulecite crown and Magiluminescence. For phase 1, I'm killing all but one Grumblebee. Then I'm gonna kite. I do this by positioning BeeQueen closer to me than the Grumblebees. She flies slightly faster, so it's not that difficult to do. Then I bait one attack from her and whip her once or twice, depending how close the Grumblebee is. After taking some damage, she'll fly off to the side, and I can chase after her, bait another attack, and sneak in a couple hits before the Grumblebee catches up. Wanda can do this much easier than other characters because of the range and power of her clock. You can kite BeeQueen as any character, it just takes a bit of extra management of the Grumblebees if you're trying to get through the fight in a reasonable amount of time. Now, you can continue this method in phase 2 if you want. The only difference is you need to dodge all of the Grumblebees, not just one. Other than that, the strategy is the same. It just takes a little bit longer. I did that during the first run, but this time around, I just went for the pan flute in this phase. I'll post the link to the original fight if you want to see a version without the flute. Now for phase 3 and 4, I'm gonna lure the Grumblebees away during the screech, then I'll run back to BeeQueen, throw on the Knight armor, and tank her. You can kite her in this phase, but it's really tough baiting the first attack when she's not moving towards you. So we'll just tank her, and let me tell you, Knight armor plus Thulecite crown is such a nice combination. Incredible damage reduction plus durability. The crown will take 48% of the absorbed damage, so your Knight armor will last almost twice as long, and you get the occasional force field. With this combo, a single Knight armor will be good for 18 BeeQueen stings, and trust me, if old Wanda is swinging for that long, BeeQueen should be close to death, if not dead. I used 70% of a single Knight armor for this fight, and the whole thing took a day. If you want to go even easier on yourself, then feel free to pan flute your way through the first 2 phases. 2 flutes should be enough to get you to phase 3 without too much kiting, and then just tank your way through the second half. BeeQueen dies, and Wanda finally gets her crown and bundles. She's not super keen on jelly beans, but I have other plans for the royal jelly. Because now I finally get to really start stockpiling food for Wanda. She's actually quite simple when it comes to food management. No healing food needed. She's got 175 max hunger, so for me, meaty stew makes the most sense for hunger restoration. Eventually, I would love to set up honey farms and make taffy for Wanda, but honestly, by that point in the run, I expect to have an enlightened crown and a bone helm, both of which will be less of an effort for restoring sanity than, making special food. But since it is Wanda's favorite food, I do feel obligated to make a little bit of taffy for the gal. I really don't know why I added an extra honey here, cause 1 royal jelly plus 3 twigs are enough to make taffy. Next time I fight BeeQueen, I'll make the jelly beans, just in case I have to heal later on as another character who, God forbid, can't use clocks. Also, I finally spotted the evasive lunar donut. That is, the ring of a landmass that shows the general direction of the lunar island. I'm not going to sail until next autumn, but it's good to know which direction to start hunting. But for now, I want to get ready for the shadow pieces on night 41. For moving the suspicious marble pieces, I'm going to use some rift watches. These you could make by socketing a backtrek watch with a purple gem, just in case you needed another good reason to rush the ruins as Wanda. I'm actually going to dismantle one of the 3 ageless watches I used for BeeQueen, and that'll leave me with 4 timepieces, which I can make into 2 backtreks and socket them both. You can move the pieces with just 1 rift watch, but you need to wait a day for the cooldown, and I kinda only had 2 days left to move them all. So I moved the bishop and the knight head into position in like a quarter of a day, which was probably faster than it would have taken with the beefalo. Except now I need to wait for one of them to cool down. Gives me enough time to backtrack home and kill a lure plant moments before it sprouted eye plants and digested all of my loot sitting on the ground. If you wanted to be more cautious than me, you might consider re-turfing your drop-off spot with non-eye plant turf like rocky or sandy. You can also use crafted flooring, but at that point you might as well, make chests. It's kind of hard to explain what happened right here, but I'll try. I opened a rift, realized I was old and couldn't carry the rook nose, slammed an ageless watch to get young, tried and failed to pick up the nose because I was still old, and jumped through the rift as I turned young before I realized I wasn't carrying the nose. This is why we make 2 rift watches, because Jazzy is an idiot. Anyways, all the pieces are assembled on day 40, which means I'm able to dismantle these backtrack watches before the fight and make a couple extra ageless watches and a backstep. I really love the early game mechanics around tinkering with watches to make, what you need at the moment. It's just too bad that you stop having to repurpose timepieces once you have a lot more to work with later on. I like tinkering. Here comes the shadow pieces. As old Wanda, I'm gonna kill the knight first, then the rook, and lastly the bishop. The reason I leave the bishop for last is because I can use the backstep watch to completely dodge the attack. Something that's really hard to do with other characters. I just need to be careful because old Wanda doesn't backstep as far as her younger forms, so I just need to make sure that my backstep point is far enough away before I position myself to attack. I think that this method has a few advantages over the tier 3 rook. First of all, you don't need a row to dodge. Second, the bishop has 25% less HP than the rook, so the fight will be over quicker. And lastly, if you do happen to get hit once, then it's 60 damage versus 165. But now Wanda's got her Shadowheart, and we can spend the rest of spring killing a handful of Miskis before it's time to go clear the ruins and fight Fuelweaver. Thanks for watching, and hope you can join me for the next part, coming out soon. And by the way, this is my current Megabase world on Twitch, so if the late game interests you, then I'd encourage you to come check out the streams. You can ask me questions about my videos, or just, hang out with a bunch of people that enjoy the game as much as I do. Take care.